In step 4, we're going to calculate the fixed cost. We're going to create the fixed cost table. And here it says that the way we can calculate utilities used is about $2.9 Canadian per square foot. It comes from a website that actually does the estimate for American prices, $2.14 US dollars per square foot. But I'm using that, I converted that to Canadian, it's about $2.90. And we're also going to calculate employee salaries, and we've got to find on the web, and I expect you to find a place where to find that. But we're going to factor in benefits, and when you click on here, this website talks about how much it costs for benefits, and it ranges from about 15% extra from the salary to 30%, depending on the size of the company. And I'm just going to always go 30%. Just for me, you can, if you can argue whatever you want in your decisions, but that's how I'm going to calculate mine. You don't need to cite these two things. I know about them, but you are going to have to cite the wages that you use for your employers. And so what employers does this have? And it doesn't really say in here how many employees they have, but I'm going to make a guess that I'm going to need a couple of retail workers and one manager. That's what I'm going to use. So back to Excel, I'm going to make my fixed costs table, Control B to bold that. And I'm going to have a line for utilities. And I don't want to bold these. Utilities and a lease, and I better write them all down and then unbold them. I'm going to have a manager, and I'm going to have retail workers. And I'm going to unbold these. And then, in fact, I'm going to indent them a bit. So it's Alt H, and then it's 6. And then Alt HOI to make it wide enough. So in my fixed costs, I have to, in order to calculate the utilities, I have to figure out how big is this place. And so going back to the web, that says that it's in Vaughan, it says it's beside a couple of garages. And so when I go to maps.google.com and I go store in Vaughan, Ontario, first one that comes up is Popeyes. And if I go there, it's right there. And if I actually zoom in and I take a street view of this thing, there's one of the gyms right here. Now, I took a minute of poking around. This is the second pick that I thought it could be, but I'm going to assume it's this one, and I'd argued it in my video if I needed to. And in order to get the size of this thing, I'm going to get the width. I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to go satellite, and I'm going to zoom in, and it was right here, the Popeyes one. And even though it says all flooring here, they had the first 2.5 of these plus half of this thing. So 1, 2.5. I'm going to right click there and measure the distance from there to about here, distance to here. and that is 5.37 meters. And then they probably have it all the way to the back. So I'm going to clear the measurement, and I'm going to go from measure distance from here to the back, distance to here, and that is times 33.64 meters. So in Excel, I'm just going to do that math, equal 5.37 times 33.64. It's 180.6 square meters. And if I say 180.64 meters squared M2 to SQFT to square feet, it's 1944 square feet. So I'm going to say 1944. And this is SQFT. And then the 2.9 Canadian dollars, and for this, and so utilities per SQFT is 2.9, and I'm going to make that into dollars. Control 1, tab, currency, and I'm going to leave it at 2 decimal places. And then utilities. Actually, I've already written it here. So equal the 2.9 multiplied by the 1944. Alt HOI. Oh, and I don't want I want decimal places. So Control 1, tab, 0 decimal places there. And I'm going to put a comma here. So Control 1 down to number, tab down to number, and tab, I wanted 0 decimal places, but tab, I do want separators, and then enter. So I figured out the utilities. Lease, Alt tab, is, I think it was $59,000 a year. So 59,000. And I'll make it all dollars in a minute. And then a manager, and I'm going to have 1 manager and 2 retail workers. And so a manager makes Ontario. And so they only give me $22.51. So I'm going to have to figure that out. Equal $22.51. I'm going to say for 7 hours a day times 5 days a week times, I'm going to say give 2 weeks vacation, 50 weeks a year. That's how much. Now I'm going to take the URL to that, Control L, Control C, Alt Tab, and then in Manager, Control K, and Control V, Enter. That's my manager salary. And what about my retail worker? Retail worker salary, Ontario. 13, I'm actually going to go into it. 13, I'm just going to say $14. So Control L, Control C, Alt Tab to get to Excel, go down Retail Workers, Control K, Control V, Enter. And so that one is equal 14 times 7 times 5 times 50. Now I'm going to apply the 1.3 for both of them for benefits. And so that and I'm going to move these cells that have a formula in them. To move them, select the two cells we want to move, Control X, move them to the position, the column I want them in, and Control V, because I want them to line up with these calculations I'm about to make with how much I have to give out as salary plus benefits to my managers and retail workers. So that's going to go equal how many of them there are multiplied by their salary multiplied by the 1.3. And I'm going to shift down, Control D for down. And now I'm going to make all of these numbers be Control 1, Tab, Currency, 0, Enter. And, oh, but where's my $sign? Control 1. Oh, I went down a number. I want Currency, 0, Enter. And I also want these, Shift, Control 1, Tab, down to Currency, 0, Enter. So I have all these workers, and now I have a total of my fixed costs equal sum, shift, and down. This is my total. I'm going to make a line above it, Alt H, B, O, and I'm going to make it red, Alt H, H. Red is the color I'm using for fixed costs. And that's my fixed cost table.